Hi, everybody. First of all, I'd like to introduce Ali, who is most gratefully come on board. That's not even good English. Yes, it's morning. Um, After the three botched webinars that you've endured in this course to date, I'm so grateful that that Ali's come on board for the webinars to host them. So, do you want to just say a good day to everybody?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Heart Chakra.
Alrighty. So we haven't got anyone here in live time, so I'll conduct it more like a tutorial, although I do have a couple of questions that Kathy Miller has sent through, so I'll also be responding to those. Now, just the idea of these monthly webinars is for me to be able to directly answer your questions and support you personally through the journey. So we are scheduling all of the webinars well in advance for the rest of the course, alternating east and west, so that, you know, it works time-wise for you. So please do what you can with more notice to try and attend the live events, and you'll get much more out of it. Okay, so I'm going to speak first about the archetype of the green man, which is the god that sits in the heart chakra. It's quite timely, actually, because the astrological correspondence for the green man is Ophiuchus, the 13th sign, and we're in Ophiuchus for another 2 days. So it's a very, it's a small constellation. It's the second half of Scorpio, and we journey through Ophiuchus from November 30 to December 17. So Ophiuchus is the sign of the awakened man. It's the man who is Shaktified, the man who has gone and found his inner feminine, who's gone, taken that journey within in order to find his other half, so that he's whole, that he's a king. And in doing that, he no longer defers to his partner. I'm speaking in heterosexual terms there, but equally if it's in a homosexual relationship, to the more feminine partner. Men that haven't sort of embodied their own inner feminine will give their authority over to their wife, will seek direction from their wife. And if they're not in a partnership, from their mother or from their female friends. So it's very much, the sort of mark of a self-governing, sovereign, heart-centered man, that he has this archetype of the green man on board. Now, the green man is an ancient archetype. He was known as Cernunnos, and you'll see in the sort of, Gaelic traditions, they had huge celebrations to honour him. He was the original Santa Claus. All the men would go away for Yule, for midwinter, and do their 9-day druidic retreat. And in doing that, they would have a ceremonial psychological death and rebirth by looking at what they'd outgrown, what they needed to release, so that then they could set clear intent for the coming year, and return to their families as the good father. And, they might come bearing some gifts, but really the gift was them, that they had taken that time to attend to their own growth. And in doing that, they don't become Darth Vader, which means Dark Father. It's such a relevant mythology, the Star Wars, it's not even a trilogy, I don't know what to call it, but the series of films, George Lucas was mentored by Joseph Campbell, who's probably been one of the most, I can't even put it into words, the most prolific writers and teachers on mythology, and that in showing men that they have a choice to be somebody that follows what the force, i.e. Shakti, that intuition is guiding them to do moment to moment. And if they don't, they will seek power and become more machine than human, So, what I suppose sets the Green Man apart is that he has made a deep commitment within his own heart to serve the mother, not his own mother, but the great mother, the earth mother. And this was a part of the Holy Grail ceremony, which was part of that Yule druidic retreat that the men did. So we are fortunately seeing the rise and the return of the Green Man with the permaculture movement, with more and more men starting to work from home and be more present as fathers, and start to look at where their life is not sustainable and come back to themselves by reconnecting with nature. And this is different from the archetype of Pan, the wild man, because the Green Man is more a midwife to Mother Earth, to Gaia. He's kind of the god of agriculture. So he seeks to support nature. He seeks to support the feminine by understanding the cycles, by working with her to propagate and sustain life. So, the way that this differs, often you'll see the Green Man and Pan portrayed as one and the same archetype, but Pan is more, the man that goes off walkabout on his own. That's an Australian Aboriginal term when you just go bush, and you have your own sort of vision quest with nature. And in doing so, you find your own primal power, so that you can be authentic. But this archetype is the shift from the boy to the man. And I'll explain what I mean by that. The first 3 chakras go in 7-year cycles of activation. So the base chakra is 0 to 7, okay, little tackers, which is why little kids like to run around nerdy-roody and eat sand and play in mud, okay? So they're in that wild primal stage. Then 7 to 14 is the emotional center, the sacral, and this is creativity. This is, play. This is expression and exploration of the senses. So, that sort of middle childhood. And then solar plexus is 14 to 21. This is the teenager who is trying to find their identity, who they are in relation to others, first by individuating from their parents, but getting feedback from the external world, from their peers, from other authority figures, by comparing themselves to what they see outside. So this is, from 21 to 28, this is the making of the man. And I'm speaking in terms of the masculine, but, that's within women as well. It's when we go, okay, well, I'm not just going to rebel against my parents, and I'm neither going to rebel or seek their approval. The feminine equivalent of this is the sort of dichotomy between Persephone, the archetypal daughter, and Demeter, the mother. And we've always got all these archetypes on board regardless of our age, but when the daughter or son archetype is stronger than the inner parents, which is Demeter, the earth empress, the mother archetype, and the green man, the father archetype within. These are the two aspects that govern the heart chakra. If they're not as sort of dominant as the identity of son-daughter, we go through life projecting unconsciously parent onto other people, making them hold responsibility for us. This might be unconsciously expecting them to be a sounding board and listen to all of our latest dramas. Okay, you may recognize that in yourself or in friends that are really draining company because they're like a demanding, attention-seeking child. They don't take any time for themselves to process, so they expect other people to hold a space for them to process. And this is why, again, the practice of circle is so important in our maturation process. By committing to a practice, to look at ourselves and to gather in circle to accelerate our growth in cyclic routine with the natural cycles, we're not unconsciously expecting others to be responsible for us emotionally, including our partners. So this is very much the archetype of the mature father. So the immature father is when the boy is leading, and it's about what he wants to do first and foremost, rather than what's good for the whole, good for the family, good for the community. A mature green man is a man who has firsthand learnt to value the qualities of the feminine and the values of the feminine. So he's not just kowtowing to what it is his partner wants to do and then secretly going off and doing his own thing, or being rebellious or resentful so she feels like she's got another child. But he is actively pursuing those goals himself by creating community, by making sure that he has support, by having both male and female friends that he can speak to or that he can build his dreams with. In other words, not doing everything in isolation, because when a man does everything in isolation, that is not sustainable. And so he's more likely to turn to, alcohol or marijuana as a crutch, or just escape into virtual realities, porn and things like that, as a way of totally just shutting down and not feeling. Because the heart chakra is about feeling. If we're not comfortable with feeling, we're not able to stay in our heart. Because I'm just going to have a slurp of my tea since I'm talking nonstop. Hang on. Thanks. If we consider a baby, and you consider how many emotions, how many feelings a baby expresses within, well, gosh, an hour. I was going to say a 24-hour period, but within an hour, okay? It becomes apparent that we are feeling beings, we are sentient beings, and that we are constantly feeling, if we are really inhabiting our humanness, the fact that we are organic beings. And what a baby does is it's constantly allowing unadulterated expression of those feelings. And so it's moving through emotional states very, very quickly. It's not getting stuck in one emotional state. 1 minute it'll be crying, the next minute it'll be laughing. Because when we express one polarity, you swing to the other. If we shut down, and in our culture, men have been conditioned to shut down because they've been taught that it is unmasculine to feel. So what they've been conditioned to model themselves on is somebody who is stoic, i.e. not human, kind of like the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, the man without a heart. And this does our boys a great disservice. We wonder why, the younger generation are all addicted to screens, because it's an escape from feeling. It's a very intense ride being human, having all those feelings. And especially in a culture which doesn't allow enough reverence and space to have those feelings with dignity and support. So hence, everyone's reaching for addictions and escapes. So it's a brave man. It's a true gentleman that is connected with his feelings. And this is something that women... I was going to say a statement that was very general then, and I want to qualify it. I was going to say women really value that in a man. A mature woman values that in a man. A younger woman will expect a man to be a shining knight and hold her, but if he dares show her his vulnerability, she'll be turned off because she wants a father rather than a partner. Whereas a mature woman really values a man that is in touch with his feelings, because then there can be real communion between their hearts. She really feels like she is in relationship with another being who's fully present. It's very hard to be in relationship with someone who's not present to themselves. So we have had different green mans in the God, I can't even speak. I was running a circle late last night, so forgive me for being tongue-tied. I was thinking of Robin Hood, Robin Goodfellow. This is another sort of Celtic pop culture portrayal of the green man, the man who served from the heart. He served the people when the Dark Father was in power and taxing the peasant classes in a way that was really not sustainable, and he ensured that their needs were met by distributing the wealth. Other green men that come to mind is Shrek, Yoda, Kermit the Frog. They're all archetypes that emerge to help us value the masculine who is connected with his heart, who follows his heart, which is our conscience, which is our innate guidance system, our intuition, the force. It's empowering for a man, because when a man's operating out of the solar plexus, the next gate down, he's stuck in his mind. And that means he's susceptible to taking on board what other people think over knowing his own heart. The mind can be deceptive and confusing. The mind can lead us to paralysis, as we discussed last month, with overanalysis. And it takes a long time to reach a decision if we're only approaching it from a rational, pros and cons list, and analysing data. Whereas if we are responding to moment situations and stimulus by attuning to the heart, this enables us to make split-second decisions, which is how a man emerges as a leader, because he's able to just know what to do in a crisis, in the moment, and others look to that. Others are inspired by that example. So this is why, you know, Braveheart or Outlander, these you know, mythic heroes are so attractive to both men and women because they are leading from the heart and championing the feminine. They're doing what is right because the heart instinctually knows what is the path of right action in any moment. So the Green Man champions the feminine, but he champions anything that is sacred. So whether that's the sick, the frail, children, nature, he is for life. He's pro-life. Whereas the Dark Father, one who is seeking ultimately their own validation, their own worth, it's a lesser goal. It's lower, literally. It's coming from the solar plexus rather than the heart. And so it's selfish. It's seeking power as a substitute for love. Because ultimately, if we are seeking to be the embodiment of love and serve love, we aren't needing power. Power is what we seek when we don't feel we have love. So love starts with self-acceptance. That's very, you know, if there was one thing you would walk away from this webinar with, that's the teaching. That's the practice for this month, self-acceptance, self-allowance. The good father, the good mother, they are ones which allow their children to make mistakes. And that doesn't mean that there aren't consequences, but it means that they're not crucified, they're not vilified, they're not, they don't execute punitive punishment. Instead, it's restorative practices, which is something that's been reintroduced into many schools. It started in prisons by an Australian teacher who introduced it into prisons in the UK and then started bringing it into low socioeconomic schools. And it's called circle time, funnily enough. They sit in circle and do the practice of sharing circle, and in hearing each other's heart, they develop empathy and compassion for each other, and that restores their humanity so that they are compelled by their heart to reconsider their behaviours with an awareness of the impact of the effect of their actions. And that's kind of the difference between operating out of boy, the man child or the woman child, and the inner adult, which is the heart chakra. We have to parent ourselves in order to grow ourselves up. And what are we doing when we're parenting ourselves? Well, quite simply, we're acknowledging the law, the universal law of reciprocity. Have I said that right? Anyway, cause and effect, karma. What you do has an effect, like ripples in a pond. A child does not stop to consider the effects of their actions. So for a lot of people, it's like a big slap upside the head with a wet cod when they become a parent. And this is why many women go into postnatal depression and many men just work a lot, because they can't cope with the ego death that parenthood demands. It says somebody else is now your priority. And that is so confronting in a culture that is ego-driven, that encourages us to compete with one another to prove we're the best. You know, Darwinism, although it's, what would you say, a distortion of Darwin's teachings, but, you know, this survival of the fittest mentality, which keeps people in the lower chakras. The irony is when we collaborate, when we create from the heart, motivated by what our heart's telling us to do, by doing what sits right within our heart, what feels loving towards ourselves and create something that promotes life, we want to do it collaboratively. It's more joyful. It gives us a deep sense of heart fulfillment and contentment, and we don't need then the validation of, oh, I did this all on my own, and we can then create something so much greater than we could do on our own. I've just got some notes here I'm going to refer to as well. He is the archetype, the green man, of the stag king. So you'll see, like the antlers look like the tree of life's branches, which you'll know from the tree of life meditation that we put our roots down first to the mother to ground. And then, because we're grounded, then we can reach for the sun and really expand into the fullness of our potential, which is the sacred masculine, but only with the support of the mother. So it's like the foundation is our health. The foundation is our self-care. And I wrote about that in today's Moon Woman post, funnily enough. It's Moon in Cancer, would you believe? So, that's the archetype of the mother of Demeter, who I'll get to shortly. So this portrayal of the man with the stag horns, he looks like he's got the branches emerging from his head. He is a man who is connected above and below, a man who's not afraid to put down roots, to make a commitment, whether that's to get married, to become a father, to build a home or build a life, build a community. He's not flighty and transient, thinking he doesn't know himself. How can he commit to somebody else? He might change his mind. Yeah, this is a man who knows his own heart because he's gone into his winter cave. He has sat with himself. He has pulled himself apart from the lost boys and gone, what do I think? What do I feel? And when he does that, he doesn't need to rebel against his father. He doesn't need to rebel against his boss in order to prove his manhood unconsciously. So, when he's kind of at the conscious level, the symbolic level, he knows he is one with the land. There is no separation. These are the men that work on those Greenpeace boats, on the Sea Shepherd, that risk their lives because they know that there is no greater purpose than serving life. I was recently moved to tears watching a YouTube video of a Maori wedding where the men dance the traditional warrior dance, the haka. And the reason I was moved to tears, I grew up watching this as a little tacker in New Zealand. And, I recently went back there and had about 200 school kids performing this. And they all learn it over there. They all learn the Maori culture. And girls and boys perform it with such conviction. And I finally got it because a woman in America, of all places, shared with me the words of the haka. And they are saying, we are the land. The land is us. So knowing this and seeing these men performing this dance and seeing the Maori bride in tears, because she's seeing the conviction in these men's faces that they will stand up and be counted. If it came to it, they would defend and protect what is sacred. They would defend and protect the land and her people. And this is what has been sorely missing in our Western culture that was grounded in the empire of the Dark Father, Rome. So, it's so important we get back to the land-based cyclic traditions that connect us to the great wheel of life. particularly in our theology, which is the basis of all of our choices, the philosophy that we live by. So, a green man is a man who will recycle, okay? Again, it's the wheel. He doesn't have to have the latest clothes or the latest car. You know, he's not just thinking about short-term gratification like a child, okay, having this great big beast to prove his manhood on the road, a Hummer. Instead, he's thinking, okay, what is going to be resourceful, okay, and not showy, but responsible for his own needs, for his family and community's needs, but also for the next 7 generations. This is the archetype of in the ancient world, what was known as the oak or the holly king. So there were 2 distinct halves to the seasonal mandala: the lighter months of spring and summer, which is when the oak king was said to rule, and that is, you know, the wise king who is birthed at winter solstice. And then through the darker months of autumn and winter, the holly king. And the holly king has kind of been portrayed as, you know, the sort of evil doppelganger. But if you think about it, the botanical or magical properties of holly is protection, okay? So this doesn't have to be a dark representation at all. If a man is comfortable with his own shadow and takes responsibility for his own dark side, he can be a protector of, you know, of the light and of, you know, the vulnerable, to those that have an unconscious agenda or, you know, act out unconsciously. I'm reminded of the myth of the Japanese sun goddess Amaterasu, which I shared with the mother-daughter circle I ran last night. Basically, in the myth, Amaterasu creates, and she's like another version of Demeter, the mother. She creates all of, you know, this abundance, and her brother unconsciously destroys it all. And so she hides herself in a cave and says, that's it, I'm not going to, what's the point in creating if it just gets destroyed? And everything becomes more and more like the underworld without her presence. And it becomes so bad that Izumi, who's like a clown goddess, goes, right, we need to bring the light back. We need her. And she rolls out a great big mirror. She tells everyone to bring their roosters, and she starts doing a dance that looks so ridiculous that the roosters all start crowing. And Amaterasu rolls back the stone because the feminine is curious. Okay, we've been punished as Eve and Pandora for being curious, but it's actually our saving grace, because when you're curious, you learn. And she rolls back the stone and she sees her own reflection. It's the first thing she sees, and she laughs. It's like, oh, of course, I'm the light. How could I be anything but the light? Yeah, I can't hide my light away. It's not who I am. I have to create. I'm a creative being. So similarly, the green man is a man who goes, fuck this. I'm not going to work in the corporate wearing the tie, the suit, as in, you know, the modern day suit of armor, and kowtowing to a boss that treats me like shit, excuse my French, and really perpetuate the old paradigm by making companies rich that aren't aligned with sustainable values. He goes, you know what? I'm going to work from home. I'm going to do a tree change or a sea change. I'm going to spend more time with my family by having a home-based micro business. I'm going to think small, grassroots change, rather than I'm going to, you know, conquer the world, be the king of Wall Street. So we'll just go through the 3 levels of awareness with this archetype. When he's at the unconscious level, blocked heart. This is why a lot of men have heart conditions, heart attacks, and around midwinter experience bronchial infections. It's the grief of the heart because they're not honouring their heart. They're not living a heart-centred life. These are men that tend to buy their affection. It's why Santa has a whole sleigh of presents rather than just being a decent being, showing up 364 days of a year as a good father. Thanks for laughing, Ali. You encourage me. The unconscious father is linear, okay? So he's thinking in terms of, linear goals rather than cyclic sustainability. He tries to beat the clock, beat nature. This is why men that are in dark father or boy man will get the sports car when they hit midlife or trade their wife in for a younger trophy bride because they're trying to beat the clock because they haven't learnt the value of the wheel. The Lion King is the ultimate parable for this, that you can run away from your responsibility, but you'll have no self-respect, and that will play out in the choices that you make, and you'll end up miserable. He seeks to be mothered and nurtured externally. Semi-conscious. I was just going to say, often, men going to a pub every night that live alone, they're drinking beer, which is made from hops, which is, from the grain goddess, the mother, and they're having someone cook their dinner every night. They're being mothered. So a good sign is when a man has mastered the domestic arts for himself, when he enjoys cooking, he knows how to keep a house livable. He doesn't have a toilet that would scare young children. So semi-conscious, I'm reminded of a car mechanics I went to and needed to use their toilet. I've never seen a toilet in the state that I saw that toilet. It was black, the bowl. I'm thinking not some green men working in that establishment. So at the semi-conscious level, he learns to trust divine flow and to give more freely from the heart, knowing that ultimately abundance will be returned to him, even if it's not in a monetary form. Will come in the form of support or other resources, or goodwill, word of mouth. He learns to acknowledge and release what he's outgrown. He individuates from head-based goals, in other words, achieving, to being happy, having a heart-centered life, spending more time at home with himself, cave time, man cave time, making it a priority, family, time in nature, time with community. He examines the impact of his actions on his partner, on his kids, on his work colleagues, his community, his friends, and on nature. And he will make changes accordingly when he goes, that's not, ideal. He gets personally involved in the wheel of life by parenting or farming. At the conscious level, he is immersed in community. So he's kind of like a king in his local kingdom. He understands the power of a collaborative effort. So he inspires others to join him. He is doing his heart's work. He's not talking about it as a pipe dream. He is actively committed to doing it in practice, in action. He's learned to honour every stage of the wheel. Yeah, we have to have a time for gestation. We have to have a time for sowing. We have to have a time for tending. We have to have a time for culling, harvesting, and a time for being fallow. So he applies that no matter what he's creating in his life, whether he's writing a book, whether he's raising a child, plants, or a project that he's project managing. He takes full responsibility for what he has sown. So rather than looking to scapegoat others, which is what the tyrant does, a good leader will go, okay, let's review what worked, what didn't, what am I responsible for learning in this process. He has an alive relationship with Mother Nature and a deep reverence for Mother Earth. So he's made that commitment to serve Gaia, to use his hand, his mouth, his body in service to the mother. And he sees time with future generations as a wise investment, not a burden. So I just want to make the point that between 11 to 1 is heart chi time. This is also the zenith on the sundial of masculine energy, midday. So it tells us right there, for a man to truly be in his power, he's not coming from the inner sun, the solar plexus, he's coming from his heart. You know why? The heart is the balance point between Mother Earth and Father Sky. So when we're in the heart, we are operating from the inner marriage of those two polarities. That means we're supporting ourselves. What we're creating is sustainable because it's combining both matter and spirit equally. So we can afford to be open-hearted because we feel intrinsically a part of something greater than us. We trust, so we can be generous. When we're generous, we open the flow of abundance on all levels. He provides through being connected to nature. He has an interest in foraging, like the River Cottage series, Hugh Fernley-Whittingstall. He looks at how he can be creative with nature to provide as hunter-gatherer. He doesn't dominate and rape nature. He has sustainable hunting practices, sustainable fishing practices, sustainable agricultural practices. He acknowledges the need for an ego death. All right, I better get on to the mother. Got a bit passionate there about the father. So the mother aspect of Demeter, I'm just going to run through all her positive traits after I have a slug of my tea. One sec. She is patient with herself, first and foremost. If we aren't kind to ourselves, if we aren't allowing with ourselves, we become more and more tightly wound, terse, like a taut rope that's going to fray at the edges. So we have to remember the energy of the feminine goes like this, okay? It's circular out and around into the heart, which is why it feels lovely to wrap ourselves in a bathrobe or a pashmina. It's about being generous with the self, giving to the self. If there's one thing you take for your Demeter this webinar, it's self-care. Nothing grows without self-care. It is the foundation of all life. If you don't look after the soil, you're not going to get a great harvest. If you don't look after yourself, you're not going to be able to mother well. So it is not selfish to factor in cyclic self-care routines. So understanding the cycles, you go, okay, dark moon, I'm not going to cook. Yeah, or when I'm premenstrual, I'm going to go and have a dance, or I'm going to schedule a massage every month, or I'm going to have a bath night where I lock the door and just relax and meditate. You make sure that you have these cyclic routines, which is what this course is all about. It's about developing cyclic routines, living in alignment with the natural cycles. So when we're doing that, we can then open our heart and be encouraging of others, encouraging of their growth, nurturing of their needs, because we're coming from a full place. We're not coming from an empty cup and giving because we're coming from a place of obligation, duty, which then breeds resentment. And we flip into the dark mother, which is somebody who threatens to destroy everything she's created. Okay? This is when, women snap and beat the crap out of their kids with the wooden spoon, or say the most ghastly things. And it's just a flag. Hey, your self-care, it really is at crisis point. So rather than, flagellating, self-punishing, it's okay. I need to start being extremely kind to myself now, or I'm going to continue to spiral down, destroying everything around me. When we're empowered in the mother, we are centered, because the heart, it's the central energy center. So when we're just in the heart, we're not scattered. The mind, which again is low, it's solar plexus, but it's easily distracted. Yeah, it can't hold focus. It always thinks it's going to miss out on something. Like a child, it's a young mind. Whereas when we move into the heart, we trust. I'm always in the right place at the right time. If it's meant to be, it will happen. So we're not running around like a blue-ass fly, seeking everything externally. Instead, we're coming home to ourselves, and we're trusting what we need will be given, will come to us through synchronicity, through the serendipitous, benevolent universe, if we are living in alignment with our heart. So women do themselves a disservice when they operate out of their masculine, trying to achieve, rather than really making their own self-care their priority. Now, easier said than done, again, because of the conditioning. Like I was saying with the green man, men have been conditioned to shut down. What have women been conditioned to do? Serve everybody to the point of self-sacrifice. We're told that's a good woman. That's a good mother. No, you don't want your eulogy to say, well, she died at 35 of breast cancer because she mothered everybody at a cost to herself, but what a good woman. No, you want to say, fuck, she was an inspiration. She had an amazing ability to create a balanced life. She was authentic. If she didn't have the energy or the time to do something, she would say no. Instead of saying yes to everything, spreading herself too thinly and doing it with pursed lips and teeth. Because everybody feels that. It's not a gift. It's psychic sludge. So when she's at the unconscious level, she gives to the point of illness or chronic fatigue, burnout, because she's unconsciously trying to live up to this ideal of being the good mother. Whether she's a physical mother or not, in all the sort of fairy tales, the princess is kind and sweet and looks after everybody. Well, that's just not sustainable. Princess also has to have that warrioress side that says, I got needs too. So that's why the queen, Ishtar, is the woman that is both the lover and the warrior. So at the unconscious level, she has low self-care, which then results in destructive habits. So having a wine to cope, or losing herself in soap operas or romance fantasy novels to escape. It's similar to the Dark Father, just a different version. Or, she may, be putting all her time into online dating and negating her responsibilities to herself, looking at what she can do to make herself happy, instead seeking somebody out there to come and rescue her rather than being the inner mother. Now, if Persephone is stronger, the daughter, than the inner mother archetype, she will unconsciously do the opposite of everything her mother told her to do. So even though she's 40, she might still eat gluten because once her mother said, "Oh, I think you might be gluten intolerant." And she's like, "Hell no, what does she know?" Blah, 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 blah. So these are the tendrils that we have to just eke out and go, why am I making that choice? Why am I being defiant or denying even looking at that possibility? Deep down, is there a part of me that's rebelling against, I don't want to be like my mother? So the more we look at that, the more we grow up our Persephone, our inner daughter, and take responsibility for ourselves. And the measure, when we know we've done that, is when you can go and have Christmas or Thanksgiving with your family and not be triggered. Because if being around your family of origin is like detonators going off everywhere, chances are your inner daughter or inner son is more dominant than your inner parent. So how do we make that shift? Well, basically, when we can look at both our mother and our father and see equally their strengths and their weaknesses, we no longer have put them on a pedestal trying to get their approval or scapegoated them trying to prove we're better than them. We are seeing them as an equal. So there is no power, what's the word? Not power, what do you call it? Anyway, a power struggle, that's the word. So you can just be in each other's presence in a heart-centered way, allowing and accepting them for who they are, for being human, no longer your authority figure. So when she's unconscious, she will live through others. Okay, these are the mothers that are always taking their kids to music and dance and brownies and God knows what, and don't ever take themselves to a ceramics class or belly dance. Yeah, so this is about not living through other people, always being the support role. Again, we're taught in a patriarchal culture that behind every man is a good woman. Well, that's just crap. Behind every man is, well, a woman who's off doing her own thing and they have a nice interdependent relationship. Anyway, totally stuffed that up, but anyway. You're encouraging me by laughing at me, Ali. Thank you. Semi-conscious level of Demeter. She starts to acknowledge her unsustainable patterns of behaviour towards herself and similarly identifies her needs, starts to get in touch with what her needs are. And in the video for Demeter, I gave you that practice every day of just tuning into your heart and going, what am I feeling? What do I need? Because when we identify our needs, then we can put strategies in place and assert our right to get those needs met. We start to find resourceful ways to meet our needs. So we may not have the money for a spa treatment. So we go, okay, what are my skills? I can barter them with somebody else. I can look after their kids and then get a massage. Yeah, we do, again, power of community, power of collaboration to get our needs met. So this is when we start to examine any patterns of rescuing others, okay, needing to be seen as the all-giving, all-nurturing mother, to be affirmed that we really are a good person, we're loving and kind. Instead of mothering others, we start to empower others to do for themselves, to become independent incrementally, to take on greater responsibility. We empower our children to help us rather than doing everything for them. We start to identify our own interests and pursue them. And we start to acknowledge our life transitions and get more support for them. At the conscious level, we are open-hearted. That doesn't mean we're a bleeding heart, okay, that we will be manipulated emotionally by others that play upon our heartstrings. What it means is that we will see and respond to others from the heart, but we will also encourage them to take responsibility for themselves rather than to dive into the hole and, both be in the hole together. We will have found a balance between giving and receiving. We think of the infinity sign. If you're somebody that's a giver to the point of burnout, okay, so the idea of being narcissistic is terrifying. So you overcompensate by being altruistic all the time, which isn't sustainable. Then run the infinity sign with green light in the heart to help balance your ability to give and receive. At the conscious level, we'll attune to the heart before saying yes to anything. Okay, so we'll attune to our feelings to guide us. Okay, is this what my conscience, what my inner being, my heart-centered wisdom is telling me? Because the intuition comes down, voom, through the crown into the heart. It's like striking a bell with truth. Okay, in the Kabbalah, this is the longest path on the tree of life, path 13, the path of the high priestess. Intuition comes voom, down. It's a transmission. But where does it sit? In the heart. So if you want to know how to lead intuitively, put your hand on your heart and go, what am I meant to do here? Easy. At the conscious level, she puts routines that are cyclic in place to get her needs met on all levels, emotionally, physically, mentally, and did I say energetically? What have I missed out? Anyway, 4 elements there. She will ask for support from her community rather than martyring herself and then falling down into victim. She nurtures those around her to grow rather than trying to keep them close by undermining their trust in themselves in order to be needed, okay? The film Tangled is a great sort of portrayal of that mother that wants to possess her children rather than empower them to individuate. Great for adults as well, very funny. She is resourceful with what she has, okay? So she doesn't see abundance as necessarily winning Tats Lotto. That's an Australian version of, the bingo or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you'd call it. Anyway, lotto. But instead, she is truly grateful for what she has. And the more that she's operating in that paradigm of gratitude, she sees opportunities to create more abundance from what she has, which then like attracts like. So she feels full. She feels able to give and be generous. And she takes full responsibility for her inner child, her inner maiden, those bottom 3 chakras, 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21. She takes responsibility for her younger self. Okay? She sees when her younger self is being a drama queen or being, irritable because they're cranky and tired and hungry, and she'll own it and go, okay, I need to go get some food, or I need to go have a nap. She accepts the cyclic descents that is the path of the feminine. So if she starts to spiral and feel really dark, have dark thoughts, dark feelings, she will go to ground. She will go to her cave. She will retreat. She will recognize the need to go and gestate in the womb, in the dark, go deep within. This happens obviously in winter, and you guys are in midwinter now. So if you're feeling that right now around this lead up to Yule, then don't judge it. Don't make a story about it. It's not bad. It's exactly where you need to be. You are rebirthing yourself. To do that, you have to explore the dark. She represents the power within the earth to create. You have everything you need within you to create the life of your dreams. You do not need to defer to anyone outside of yourself. So embrace your cave time. Yeah, go within, mine those jewels. Whether it's creative ideas or insight and wisdom, it's all within you. The more time you spend in that cave, the richer you're going to emerge. Demeter, the goddess of grain and cereals, she was known to the Romans as Ceres, where we get the word cereal. She, in fact, you may want to consult a local astrologer that specializes in goddess asteroid placements in your natal chart and just see where Ceres is sitting in your natal chart. That would be a very timely thing to do if you're interested. And also what's sitting in your 4th house, which is ruled by Cancer, the mother. For the father, what's sitting in your 10th house, which is ruled by Capricorn, the opposite polarity, the father. So Demeter was said to teach the agricultural arts. You know, it was through the discovery that wild wheat could be harvested that human civilizations began. So this is why they revered Demeter, and they would bake bread. You know, they'd have ovens that were part of the ceremonial ritual space in the shared communal homes in the ancient goddess worshipping cultures that were cyclic and earth-based in their wisdom. Baking bread was a sacred act, just as breaking bread is a sacred act, because it acknowledges how much we depend on the earth, that if we can't farm, if we can't midwife and work with the earth, we're going to have a rough ride. We're going to be getting chased by wildlife and needing to leg after antelopes for our dinner. So we need to be very grateful and give back to the earth in a cyclic way, and be reverent as the early people were. So without Demeter on board, integrated within our psyche, we don't appreciate the power in our bodies. And this is something that really becomes apparent when women are pregnant. I'm just going to take another gulp. You know, the women that are really stuck in solar plexus, okay, often the career women, will be reading everything they can, okay, trying to prepare for birth like it's, studying for finals. Whereas often the more earth sign women, Capricorn, Virgo, what's the other one? Blank. Sorry. They will trust their bodies. They won't need to read books, okay? They will just allow their body to do what it knows what to do without their head getting in the way. These are the birthing goddesses. Can't say I was one, but I'd certainly admire them. The Eleusinian mysteries were the ancient rites to Demeter, and everyone in the ancient world took part in these. This was the Wheel of Eight. Everyone would meet and gather for the Sabbats, the holy days, which is where we get the word holidays, the seasonal lessons. They would observe them. It wasn't just superstitious voodoo in order to get their crops to rise, praying to the gods. It was about their own maturation process. They'd even let slaves and prisoners out to attend. It was considered so important that everybody lives in alignment with the cycles of the mother in order to grow. So similarly, when a maiden knows her own heart, she can commit. She's not going to be a runaway bride and constantly worry, oh, is there someone better for me? Instead, she will see her own strengths and weaknesses, her partner's strengths and weaknesses, and look at what they can build together, rather than being stuck in the head and going, oh, but he's got shadow traits. I'm looking for the perfect man. Okay, I've covered everything for Demeter. I want to just address these questions that Kathy Miller sent through. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so Kathy says, in my archetype reading at the fall equinox, Demeter and Green Man both showed up first, okay? So the dominant archetypes in her psyche. Demeter was running at the unconscious level and the Green Man at the semi-conscious level. And on top of that, Demeter was the goddess called to initiation. So she's asked if I can speak to the significance of these two showing up as the couple, both in first pole position, and also Demeter being called to initiation. She makes the point when she did the course the first time last year in 2015, her Demeter was playing out at the conscious level. But she did show up in the first place again then as well, so dominant. She says, I know we're in a constant state of change, and I'm wondering if you've noticed any patterns or themes in what happens which takes someone from an archetype sitting at the conscious level to then being at the unconscious or the semi-conscious. Okay, so what I would say is this. Again, we're going to look at this cyclically rather than in a linear way. You have not failed. Okay, you have not got a D on your Demeter report card, because what this means, life is a continual spiral. So it means that you have taken it to another playing level, another playing field, and now it's like, oh, you're becoming aware of a whole heap of other stuff that's unconscious in your Demeter. Okay, she is a dominant archetype. This is why she's really needing you to fully understand her, value and respect her, and work with her consciously. So if you did nothing else, that would be time well spent, really nurturing your Demeter. So the number one thing is self-care. I would be bringing in, since the Green Man has come up with her, he's going to help her. He's her ally in this. He's going to help her restructure her life so that it is cyclic by nature rather than linear. So if we think about the three stages that we go through in growing up our Demeter archetype, the first one is when, you know, we're sort of in our 20s and we're going, I need to start doing less rebellion, eating, you know, takeout every night, sleeping with people that aren't honouring, not getting enough sleep, drinking too much alcohol, and I need to start nurturing myself. The second stage is birthing your creative ideas, your creative children, your projects, by honouring the stages of the wheel. The third is either birthing physical children or farming, but loving other people's children as if they're your own. In other words, looking at the work that you're doing as being a legacy for the next 7 generations. So just, yeah, you will know what's going on in your life better than I will, Kathy. And we're not able to discuss that firsthand here live to sort of get more out of that. But what I would ask is, what shadow traits do you resonate with most in how your mother is playing out at? Are you mothering your partners? Is there a lack of self-care? Or are you not observing the cyclic needs or the stages that are required for creation? Okay, you're pulling up the shoots with impatience or not taking time to lie fallow and gestate. So in terms of dropping down, don't give that a second thought. I love that they're working together, because that is the strength of these two. Okay, so I'm not surprised to hear that there's a new man in your life, that he feels like an external reflection showing up to assist you. So the second question here is, what can you do to celebrate Yule with him, given that it's a very new sort of courtship and you don't want to, do the deed before you really have met each other at all 7 gates. So you've asked, what suggestions or activities can you do with a lover or beloved at the early stages of a courtship that would be honouring of both feminine and masculine, that doesn't involve sexual union? I like the vigil you talk about, lighting 30 candles that I do with my daughter for the shortest day. Okay, so what I do is I invoke an angel of a different quality with each candle that we light. So it might be the angel of laughter, the angel of gratitude, the angel of friendship, and so on. That is a beautiful thing to do. Other ideas that I've said here is that you might like to invoke blessings for the new year, okay, for each other as well as for yourselves as you light each candle. You might like to make or gift each other a decoration to hang on the evergreen tree that represents that life will prevail, even though at the darkest time it doesn't look or feel like it. And make a decoration that really symbolizes them in your eyes, and then present them with that gift. In a tantric relationship, couples come together usually around full moon and give each other a gift, but it's not always an action that they will do or something that they've made from the heart. So this is about giving them something which says the tree becomes almost like a pictorial nostalgic history of all. You might like to share some of the deepest, darkest thoughts, feelings, secrets that you've had about yourself, your vulnerabilities, your deep feminine. In other words, sit in the cave together. You might like to share ways that you self-nurture and take care of your needs. That way, it will become apparent whether or not you're both domestically able and whether you're both, what would you say, robust and have the foundation for a healthy relationship. Because if either one of you is not taking care of your needs, then and hasn't developed that skill set, then that's a flag. They're going to want to be parented. You might want to just share the effect that the seasons have on you, or what you love about winter. Yeah, the beauty, the things you're grateful for about winter, the things that warm your heart, or have touched your heart in some way, whether it was something that's happened in your life directly or something you've observed. Maybe, from a story you read or a film you watched or a book or a YouTube. But yeah, this is about a heart sharing. Okay. So because the heart is the place of home, you might also want to share with them what feels like home for you, whether that's a landscape, or because ultimately if this is somebody that you end up creating a home with, that's a pivotal conversation to find out what feels like home, and things that evoke a feeling of being at home. What does your heart most value and resonate with? So I hope that's a help. We've gone over time, so I hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. Ali, thank you so much for staying on. And you will all be watching this by recording, but if you can try and attend the next one live, that would be super duper. All right, thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your month. And from here on in, the days are going to get lighter and brighter and everything's going to get easier. So trust that this is the month of initiation. And if you feel like you don't want to go on, then this is the transition point. This is the ego death. So embrace it. Express all your darkness, all your sadness, everything that exasperates you, trusting that your feelings will be the catalyst for your rebirth. So God bless and Goddess bless, and have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month for the throat chakra. Ciao.